This is episode 13 with entrepreneur and master networker Artie Berne.
You may know the destination, but do you know the path to take you there? This is Profits to Wealth. We shorten the time it takes for entrepreneurs to find true success through guided conversations alongside industry elites. We'll cover your commonly asked questions and dive into the skills, tactics, and lessons learned from business professionals who've turned the industry on its head through experience, critical thinking, as well as practical money management. It's time to talk business, money, and freedom with your host, Jack Marino Jr.
Tony Robbins said, "Every problem is a gift. Without problems, we would not grow." Welcome to Profits to Wealth. This is your host, Jack Marino Jr. Today on the show, I'll be interviewing Artie Berne with ArTex Funding. Artie spent the first 20 years of his career climbing the corporate ranks, culminating at the position of worldwide VP of Sales. While seeking new challenges, he eventually fell into the alternative lending business. In 2010, after 4 years of working as an employee, he decided to start his own alternative lending business, ArTex Funding. Artie is passionate about helping businesses grow by providing them with the much-needed funding, even if they've been turned down by traditional banks. Artie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. You have a beautiful office. Love the scenery out here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Well, I appreciate your time and looking forward to the value that you're going to give the listeners. I'm always looking for tips and tricks and ways to help other people, move their business to the next level. And I think there's two things that we're going to talk about today that are very valuable. So I'm excited. So let's dive right into it. I'm always interested in how, business owners begin. There's thing exciting about the beginning and the inception of something. And I know I've known you for a couple years now. So why don't you start out with telling listeners about your own entrepreneurial journey? So how did it all begin?
So I did about 25 years in corporate America. And, I have an engineering degree. So I went to high-tech sales and went all the way up to, worldwide VP of sales. But one of the downturns, my career dissipates. So I'm done. It's like, what am I going to do now? You're a little lost. I don't know if it went out there, went through a career change and all of a sudden your 25-year career is done, over. And what do you do? So I run into a neighbor across the street and he says, "So, hey, what are you going to do now, wise guy?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know. I was developing real estate and buying little fixer-uppers in the meantime and was doing that." And I said to him, "I'm going to sell money." So he says to me, "Well, I know a guy who sells money and, he can use a guy like you." I said, "Really? What makes you say that?" He goes, "Well, these guys have more money than business." Like, what? Who has that problem? That don't exist. What are you kidding me?
That's a unicorn.
Yeah. And so he told me these guys had three corporations and was doing $200 million in sales each, and they sell them. And he says, I'm sure he'd like to talk to you. And what are they doing? Oh, I don't know. They're buying invoices from corporations that aren't getting paid for 90 days and advance them on these invoices. I said, "Wow, I never heard of that. What's that called?" He said, "It's called factoring invoice funding." And, so it was just happenstance. And he says, "Why don't you call him?" I said, "Nah, I don't think so. I'm not interested. I appreciate it." I go home that night, go on the computer, invoice, factoring, and press that enter button, stay up all night reading, studying, writing questions. I call him the next day and I said, "What's the name of your buddy's phone number? What's his name?" And I call him. And he says to me, this guy out of Houston says, "Why don't you come out to Houston? I want to buy you dinner and I want to talk to you about selling my money." And that's how I get into this business. So it was just kind of happenstance like that.
Right. So you did 25 years in corporate America. What was your role over that 25 years?
Well, I started, you have an engineering degree. So I started as what is called an application engineer, just kind of the technical expert. And then before you know it, I'm a district sales manager, then regional sales manager. It went all the way up to worldwide vice president of sales and managing, teaching, training, motivating, growing sales forces, high-tech semiconductor, fiber optic component sales forces.
So you have the engineer mind, but you gravitated more towards the sales marketing?
Yeah. When I was a kid and I'm getting this sales degree during the summer, I get summer jobs. And during the day, I'm in a cubicle designing circuit. You're not talking to anyone. You're isolated. So at night, I get a job. I don't know if anyone from the East Coast remembers Crazy Eddie. Crazy Eddie is like a Best Buy type of thing. But at night, I get a job selling audio, video, stereos, TVs. And I was pretty good at it. You just let the lion out of the cage. I get to talk to someone and see people. And then I remember I met a gal and I went on a date and I was like, oh, there's something to this sales thing.
That's unique. Usually, not to stereotype or put people in a box, but usually if you're kind of the engineer mind, you typically aren't very outgoing.
Right.
And you obviously have both of those abilities or skills to not only have the engineer mind to be able to construct and reconstruct things, but you have the people skills, the soft skills that obviously you need in sales and marketing. And you've trained, I'm sure, hundreds of people over your career as well.
Yeah. As people say, oh, you're an engineer that can actually hold a conversation. I said, yeah, I guess I can. So,
multi-talented. So you've done very well for yourself in corporate America. And then obviously as a business owner as well, you're very successful in what you do now. What advice would you give others that are looking to make the same transition from, an employee to creating their own business, if you will?
So one thing I did is I read a lot of sales books, a lot of marketing, and you learn about sales and marketing in corporate America. And you learn about databases and how to track customers and keep track of customers and learn to follow up. And everything in all those reports. And remember, corporate America, you always had to have goals. You have weekly goals, daily goals, monthly goals, and you have to hand in those damn reports.
Right.
Right. It was always about the damn sales report. How many people do you call? How many samples did you do? How many quotes did you do? And when you get in on your own, I remember going, all right, all that crap I learned in corporate America, I wonder if it works on my own,
Uh-huh.
And I said, all right, well, I got to do so many calls per day and then so many term sheets a week and so many closes a month and so much money a quarter. And you kind of put those goals for yourself that you needed and had to do in corporate America. So it keeps you on task. And it's like, okay, I have to really concentrate. I don't have a boss. No one's in charge of me, but I'm in charge of myself. I got to fill out these reports, just for myself, actually.
So it was the key performance indicators, as a lot of people in business like to call them, the metrics that will, if you break out your goal, let's say on an annual basis, and if somebody's transitioning from employee to a business owner, let's say they probably have some expenses on the personal side they have to cover. And then not only that, but on the business side. So they need to forecast out what is my revenue goal, for example, then to your point, break that down on a daily, weekly basis so that you have something that you can really focus on and track to see how you're doing.
Yeah, that was interesting. You're right. I made sure I was lucky. I had about a year of a financial runway. So after I saved up, I'd say a year, if I didn't make any money, I had a year in the bank.
Okay.
So if I had a bad month, okay, I could live and I can make it. And then when you have a year and then you have certain things you have to do every month, every week, every day, every quarter, and it's only yourself. You're at that desk at 8 a.m. every morning like you're in a factory. I used to tell my wife, the factory's calling, the bell's ringing, it's 7:59 a.m. I have a minute to get to the factory. And I'd be at that desk at 8 a.m. like clockwork. You have to have a lot of internal fortitude and internal discipline. You have to have a system. You have to be really motivated.
Absolutely. And you make a very good point that as an employee, you get to quote unquote clock in, clock out.
Right.
I don't think that you ever clock out as an entrepreneur. No, to your point, you're always on. You have to have that fortitude because it's not always going to be rainbows. It's going to be difficulty. It's going to be storms and rain a lot of times, but obviously you can't get the rainbow without the storm. So, and on top of that, to your point, you're needing financial capital reserve, a nest egg. That way you have a little runway, as you said, to help you transition, because when you step out on your own, most cases, you start out from zero. You have zero revenue.
You don't get that paycheck, as I say to people.
Right.
You eat what you kill.
Yes.
You
And
know.
so you're starting out with a lot of ambition and fortitude, but zero revenue. And so that cash reserve or that nest egg gives you a little bit of peace of mind that, hey, I'm not going to go bankrupt if
Right.
I don't get any revenue day one or day two. So
And
that's
you
good
have to have the
advice.
diligence. I used to tell people, you ever need to get hold of me, call me every morning at 8 a.m. sharp. Because 8 a.m. sharp, I'm at that desk. So you can always catch me, because I always started on the phone or in the email every morning that way.
That's very good advice. Thank you for that. So what other skills did you take from corporate America that have helped you as an entrepreneur?
Well, I've learned to work a database and use a database to track customers and follow up. And, if I meet with Jack, right, and I say, hey, Jack, do you mind if I check in with you every once in a while? I'll put it in the database and put him on every 3 weeks, put you on automatic. You know how you could set your calendar?
Right.
You press that button every 3 weeks for the next year. It'll pop up on your screen that morning. Say hello to Jack, see if he has any deals or any customers that need any funding. So you learn to use and track the database and make that your taskmaster. Because once you set that calendar, for the year, wherever you're going to call over the months or quarters, it pops up that morning and it puts you on automatic dial then. So I really learned to work the CRM, I guess they call it now.
Yeah. So you've built in systems that you learned from corporate America
Right.
that have put you in front of people on a regular basis, because obviously the most important person to everyone is themselves, number one. And so what you're doing is you're setting up systems to where you're constantly being in front of those prospective clients. Is that what you're saying?
So so when I ran sales, and I still do this now, I always say I always ask people, I start with a legal pad. You know the legal pads?
Yes.
They're 8.5 by 14 inches. And I ask everyone, how many lines are in that legal pad? And no one really knows, but I know there's 38 lines on that. Why? Because every night, the night before, I fill that legal pad up. I'm an old school guy. I like to write and cross off and star. So I fill it up with people I'm going to call at 8 a.m. when I hit that desk. So I work the phones and the email from 8 a.m. to noon every morning. I make up to 40 phone calls, follow up on the deals, follow up on people, networking, lunches, coffees, scotches, whiskeys, all this marketing I do. And then I read the book, Never Eat Alone.
Yes.
So I do a 1 o'clock lunch. After that, I go to lunch every day. I should be 300 pounds. I know. I eat out every day. And then I go to see 2 or 3 people every afternoon. And when I ran sales, that's the way I made my guide. Work the phone and the emails for customer service, follow up, networking, set your calendar, go to lunch. You have to have lunch with somebody, and then go see 2 or 3 people face to face. And if you do that every day, like we did in corporate America, now I do on my own, and my guys and gals do on their own, it works. Your phone starts to ringing.
That's great advice. I never realized there was 38 lines there.
38 lines on that legal pad.
So you're planning your day out
The night before.
The night before.
Right.
So that when you report in, quote unquote, at 8
Hit that
a.m.,
desk.
hit the desk, you already know what you're going to do, instead of getting your cup of coffee,
Right.
sitting down. Okay, I've got a million emails, and you're really not focused.
Disciplined. I'm very disciplined. I have a system, and I'm super. One of my guys says to me, "Oh, you don't hit that desk at 8 a.m. You don't start a.m." I said, "Okay, so we're going to do this now. For the next 3 months, I'm going to call you at 7:59 a.m. sharp." And for 3 months, I just I wore his, ass out,
You probably got him out of bed.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That's very good advice. I love the systems that you have in play. I'd actually classify you as a super connector. You have taught me, Jason, and my team members a lot about being a quote unquote super connector. How did you develop that skill, and what do you classify as a super connector?
So it's interesting. So when I hung up my own shingle in 2010, I'm calling around. So I'm cold calling 300 bankers is when I went on my own, cold called 300 bankers. And I read Art Sobczak had a newsletter, sales newsletter in a book. And anyone into sales, I really implore you to look him up. Sobzcak, Art Sobczak. And he taught me how to sell. So as I'm calling around, one of the bankers said to me, "Oh, I did what you used to do. You're an asset-based lender. You do alternative funding." I said, "Yeah, you're right." He said, "Well, I was very successful in it." And I said, "Really? So what did you do?" He said, "I went out networking." I said, "Networking? What's that? What's networking?" I didn't know what networking was.
Not working for most people.
Yeah, right. And he said, "Well, go to every association, business association, lunch, dinner, class, happy hour, gathering, get together, and go meet people, shake hands, go see them face to face." I said, "Oh, okay. I guess I'll do that. I never knew that." So he said, "Look up the Book of Associations. It's the master book of every business association in Austin, Texas, where the capital is of associations, because we're the state capital, which is the big lobbyists. There are a lot of lobbyists being an association." And I started to go to every lunch and breakfast and happy hour. And then when I met the different attorneys and venture capitalists and angel funders, and I would always ask them, "Hey, where are you going networking?" Because he told me, ask everyone where they're going networking, and then ask them if you can go with them. So before you know it, I ask everyone, and they would invite me. And before you know it, I'm going to 3 networking events a week, every week for the last 7 years. So I get around and about and meet people that way.
Has anything changed, do you think, over the years? Nowadays, everyone's behind the desk and marketing from a digital standpoint. I mean, does network marketing still work?
Yeah. So I tell people, when you go to a big networking event, your goal is really just to meet one person. And you have an interesting enough conversation. And what I always I want you to do is set up the follow-up meeting right then and there. So I have an interesting conversation with Jack. And I say to Jack, "Hey, Jack, can I call you in the next week or two and buy you a cup of coffee?" And Jack will say, "Yeah, sure." So then what I do, right, a week or two, I call you. And it's so funny. People go, "Oh, yeah, you said you'd call. Great. Perfect. All right, let's go out." And then, so it's meet one person and get a one-to-one face-to-face. Still, in this digital world, you have to do all that other stuff. But really, the face-to-face, the old school, the personal relationship building is what's strong and what drives sales. As you know, people want to meet you or see you or know you 4, 5, 6 different meetings before they trust you, know you, like you, give you business.
Right. That's good. It's a lost art,
Yeah.
the art of networking. I don't really like it that much, because I feel like when I was young in sales 10, 15 years ago, I know I did the same mistakes that I see a lot of people making now. Is they go in there. I love what you said about focusing on one person, develop a relationship. But I find that most go into these networking events with a stack of business cards, and really they're throwing those business cards out, really not asking many good questions about the other individual and trying to develop a relationship. It's all about what you can do for me, not the opposite.
Yeah, everything that you sell, and when you read, I remember Art Sobczak, it's always what you can do for them. Who can I introduce you to? How can I help you? Can I buy you lunch or coffee? And it's always about really good selling. It's about what you could do for them, not you. He would always say, don't spew all over these people. Ask them about themselves. Ask them about their problems. See how you can help them and solve their problems and issues. And
that was one of the first things when we finally met, you invited me not only to your networking event that you were going to, but when you and I had, a cup of coffee, it wasn't about, "Hey, I'm Artie with ArTex Funding, and this is what I do, and here's how you can help me." It was all about questions about me. It was questions about who I serve, what are my key contacts, key referral sources, things like that.
Who can I introduce you to?
Yes. And I tell you what, I think you're the only one that has ever done that. I feel like it truly is, like I mentioned, a lost art. And I would encourage, entrepreneurs that are listening to really take a lot of what we're saying to heart, because it is, if you go in with a focus on yourself, it doesn't work very well. And really most other, the recipient of that spewing, as you were saying, can really smell that desperateness, that salesiness, and it's really a turnoff. And typically people want to work with people they know and they trust and they like.
Right.
And you will not have any three of those check marks if you do what you're, saying not to do, which is just go and spew on all of these people, all the things that you do and how good you are and all the things that you can do for people.
The other thing I did is, early on networking, someone said to me, "Hey, you're a good networker. Would you mind putting me on your networking list so I can go networking with you?" And I said, I don't have a networking list, but that's a good idea. I'm going to start one, and you're going to be the first one on it. So about up to this point, 72 people have asked me, "Hey, can I go networking with you?" So I have a networking buddies list. So whenever I go to an event, to any event, I send this out, right? And I walk into an event either for anywhere from one person that goes with me, a networking buddy that goes with me. My record was I walked into an event with 29 people I brought to this event off my networking buddies list. And my buddy says, who was running the event, he said, you fill half the room up here. He gave me a bottle of scotch because I brought 29 people to his thing.
I can attest to that. Some of the events that I've hosted, you brought in an entourage about double the size of who I brought.
You're the one in Woody's.
Yes. So that is very good that you have done that. You built a list.
Yeah.
And so it actually helps, I found, in networking, if you actually don't go alone.
Right.
That you are able to introduce other people. And that also helps the flow of the conversation. And obviously you're helping other people with introductions. And that's how you become the super connector.
Yeah, if I have an event, and I know about 9 people are going to this event with me, I have what it's called, I have a networking event before the networking event. So I have everyone meet at a coffee shop close to the main event. So these 9 people can mix and mingle and know each other before they hit the main event. And I say to them, okay, we're going to now go in and enter this event, and we're going to divide and conquer. And now that you know everyone, in between your little networking talk, look around for one of us, go and walk up to one of us, wait till they introduce you into the conversation, and it makes your networking so much more productive and better, because 9 people already, and they fan out, and you kind of then mix and mingle through them and their conversations, and it just makes that event so much more productive.
Yes, that's really good advice. So now, if we kind of recap, you started in corporate America, you got an introduction to a guy in Houston, which then led to your current company, which is ArTex Funding.
Yeah.
So can you tell us more about your company and, what services that you offer?
We're doing a niche financing. No one really is doing all the funding we're doing. So I call us an alternative working capital asset-based lender. So we're alternative to the banks. Matter of fact, all the great bankers out there send me deals when they can't finance someone. They like someone, they've grown relationships with somebody, but for some reason they have to turn them down. So they say to them, well, we can't fund you. Maybe this guy can. He has different programs than we have. He has different underwriting. Maybe he can bridge you for a little while, get you funded, get you bigger, stronger, better. And what I do is I give them back to the bank. I've done that, a couple dozen times after I made them bigger, stronger, better. So I'm a single collateral asset-based lender. Any single corporate asset, I can get a company a loan. So that means if you have inventory, standalone inventory, just equipment, you have purchase orders, invoices, you have patents, any of that. And we can always get your company a term sheet because we price for risk. So what does that mean? My rates, as I like to say, go from very reasonable, 7%, to if you're bankrupt and you're not making money and you don't have a good FICO score, it's probably up to 37% and anything in between. And we can do loans anywhere from 1 month. You only need a month bridge. I got a call today. He only needs a 3-month loan. I said, perfect. We'll loan him for 3 months. So 1 month to 4 years. That's about all I do. Remember, my goal is to get you back to the bank. The bank's 5% money. It's the best money out there. It's the cheapest money out there. But I can help you in the midterm, get you over the hump, and get you going.
So would you suggest that a listener go seek traditional financing first?
Yes.
And then if that doesn't work out, then they would call you?
A lot of times I get a call from someone and they say, oh, we got turned down by the major multinational bank. And I say, you've only been to one bank, one big bank. They go, yeah. And I say, you making money? Yeah, we are. We're profitable. We're not making big profit. We're profitable. I said, okay, you know what? You haven't been in enough banks. Let me send you to a couple. Let me give you some names. Let me give you some phone numbers. Go talk to 4 or 5 of these bankers. Please just tell them ArTex Funding sent you. And then if you then get turned down by the banks, then come to me and see what I can help. So I always say, go to the bank first.
Okay.
Yes. And I refer you to the bank. If I think you're bankable, I'll send you to the bank. No, I'm not going to help you. Well, a lot of people in my business, they want to fund you and keep you on their money as long as possible. I'm the opposite, actually. I want to get you to the bank as quick as possible. Bank's 5% money. It's the best money. If I can help in the interim, if you're not bankable, great. But if not, I want to return you to the bank. I want to let you go and get bank funding.
So ArTex Funding, like you said, is alternative lending. So when the traditional banks or lending institutions turn you down, you
Right.
go to ArTex Funding,
Exactly.
and you're going to use collateral
Right.
or invoices, some
The
sort of
asset.
collateral asset
Right.
as collateral for that loan. And those loans are very short term, a month, 2 months, all the way to 4 years.
Exactly. Yeah, I like to always say is get your financials ready, get your personal financials ready, get your business financials ready, and you have to put together a loan package and send the loan package in, and we look at it, and if we think you're bankable, we'll send you to the banks. Do introductions for you or set up meetings for you. And then even a lot of times, even if you fund with us, when it's over, we'll transition you to a bank funding. So
That's valuable in itself. And that, let's say I'm an entrepreneur and I don't really know a lot of banks. I mean, sure, I could Google it and start that way, but you're well connected in the community. I could call you, and I have before, saying, hey, I've got a client looking for, let's say he's in the oil services business and he's looking to do this. And you say, well, hey, you should call Frost, or, they're really specializing in this. Or you say, you know what, call Chase or a credit union or something. I've got a good relationship. So you have a lot of good relationships. Yeah. And I like that you don't have, you basically have the ethics, the morals there that basically say, look, I could give you a loan that I know is going to cost you more, but because you're a good person,
people like the honesty.
Yes, that honesty is awesome, because it's missing in a lot of businesses. And then I love that you'll say, you know what, this deal can be banked over here for a much lower rate. And then in the event that they can't do it, you'll do it, get them to a point financially where they're stronger and better, and then transition them to traditional lending at a lower rate.
So what I want to stress is, so this is not pre-revenue funding. That means we don't do any startup funding. So you have to be in business, but we've funded companies post-revenue. So what does that mean? You could be as young as 6 months old and as small as $50,000 in sales, and we can fund you. Remember, if you're a startup, you don't have any revenue, nothing, sorry, can't help you. But if you're small, we'll help you. So the two biggest companies we seem to help is the young growing company.
Okay.
That, maybe 14 months old, 16 months old, 18 months old, but too young for a bank. So they won't fund. It's the hockey stick. You're starting to take off on the hockey stick. and we fund you then. Or you've been in business a while and you flip the hockey stick over and your business a while and you're going south.
Don't want to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't get funding, and we help those type of companies. So you're either young and you're growing, or you're kind of slightly distressed or troubled or have financial issues and things like that. So
no pre-revenue, but definitely
pre-revenue.
young companies, because a lot of times traditional banks want to see a couple of years of returns where, 2 years. And you're basically saying, hey, look, if you've got 6 months and you've got some assets that I can collateralize, we can probably get you a loan.
Exactly.
So let's talk about some examples. Give us some examples, case studies of how you've helped other businesses, succeed.
Yeah, there was an interesting one a while back. I get a call from like the Hutto Economic Development Council, and it was a prisoner exchange company. And they had a bunch of cars, and they, when you commit crimes in Austin, but you go up to Abilene or Fort Worth or Dallas, any of that, and they arrest you, they transport you back. And they were kind of a young company, $50,000, $100,000 in sales, and they needed some vans and drivers and stuff. And we funded them, did like an invoice funding, factoring arrangement for them, and got them funded. And they grew to about $4 million before they got bought.
Really?
Yeah, we grew them all the way to about the $4 million.
So they were doing 100,000 in revenue
over 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
And so they had some pretty big contracts that you used.
Great contract. They were government contracts because, Abilene and, whatever, West Texas, East Texas, that's all government invoices. So to
That's
speak.
good as gold there.
Right. And I'm closing on next week a nursery. They have some land and need to open up. They've been in business for a while, bought a new plot of land, but they need to build out their thing. Bank didn't want to do it, didn't feel comfortable with it, and we're going to fund the land. It's a private money land loan for 2 years.
And there was another example that's, let's say services, but there was even one in manufacturing that you helped. There was a honey company or something.
Yeah, that was, so, the guy up in Round Rock, most people probably know him. So he waits a while, he's working, gets a big order for Round Rock at Walmart. And he was working on it for about 2 years. Finally gets this big order, but he needs to deliver in 3 months. So he needs bottles, caps, jars, labels. And we didn't have the cash flow to buy any of that. And the bank he was extended on his lines of credit. And we looked at it was a purchase order from Walmart. And we said, this is a great purchase order. This is a lot of honey. So we loaned them in 5 days. It was record time. We usually don't do that quick, but got the guy a couple $100,000 in 5 days, and he was able to buy his bottles and his labels and his caps and ship it. And now he's blowing up, from there. Because you know how it is. You get the first shipment out.
Yes.
It's so important. You don't get the first shipment out.
Yes.
Then you're in deep waters. Yeah.
So how long is the typical loan start to finish?
It all depends. We've every once in a while I get a call on Monday. I have to make payroll on Friday. You get those calls. I said, okay, what's your email? All right. Right now you have the application list of documents in your email. Right now, I just sent it to you. You got to get that back to me tonight. Fill out the application, send me the docs. Tomorrow it'll go to underwriting. They'll read it. We're going to get you on a conference call with the underwriter on Wednesday, me, you, and the underwriter. That goes well. We issue you the term sheet on Thursday. That goes well. We fund you on Friday. Now, we don't like to do that. We've done deals in a day or two. Mostly, I tell people 3 weeks. You got to give me 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. But I've done 2-day funding, I've done 5-day funding, and I've done 3-week funding.
So it can be quick, but you want to try to have at least 3 weeks notice.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what type of financials should the listeners get together if they may be interested in obtaining funding?
I always say for us, funding, you have to qualify the business owner. So what do I need? A personal financial statement and 1-year tax return, right? That takes care of you financially, personally. And then your business is the big 4, the P&L, the balance sheet, the AR aging, and the AP aging reports. Okay. That's a good start. And then, we might need some insurance docs and maybe not, every once in a while we need tax returns, business tax returns, and lists of customers and things like each, I have about 12, 15 different funding programs. Each one has a different doc requirements.
I see.
But it's short compared to, remember, banks' cheapest funding, but they want the longest list of documents.
Yeah, and your blood type. So you better have good accounting, a good accountant, or if you're doing it yourself, you better have good books.
QuickBooks. Yes. Yeah. I refer a lot of my people to a couple of QuickBooks friends. Robert Dawson or Michael Edwards owns some bookkeeping. Shout out to them.
So you don't, and I'll put those in the show notes. Those are great resources. So you don't want to wait till the last minute. You never want to wait till the last minute for anything, but especially with funding. And then with that said, you want to make sure that you have good books and accounting, because if you're waiting, if you need a loan tomorrow and your books are not in good order, it's not probably not going to be a good ending.
The story of my life, waiting for financials.
So the lesson there is be prepared,
right?
Keep good books. And in the event that you need some type of funding, of course, listeners can reach out to you. You'll let them know, hey, this is something that I think you should go traditional route.
Right.
Or, hey, this is something that I definitely can take care of for you. If you get me these items back, I can get you funding.
I always ask you, you're in QuickBooks. If you're in QuickBooks, you can press those buttons, send me those financials pretty quickly. If not, then we can put you on QuickBooks. I have people, as I say, bookkeeping firms that'll keep you up to date, which you need to. You need to know your numbers. You need to know every penny of every number of your business, or you're not really a good businessman.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what you track, you can get better at.
Exactly.
That's the key performance indicators we talked about early in the show. I'm curious, where does the money come from?
So I always tell people it's not my money. It's all private equity money. So that means it's private wealth funds and family office money and hedge fund money, insurance company money, Fortune 500 funding divisions. I actually have an unlimited amount of money. I have $1 billion funds that I have access to that I use for financing, and I have all the money in the world, actually. Because over the years, I've cultivated these relationships with various Wall Street firms, I would say.
So there's no lack of money.
Right, exactly.
What's the average return, would you say, or interest rate that the business owner would pay?
Average is 10 to 12%, in that range. Remember, I'm always more expensive than the bank.
But if 10%. You have to have it and it's for a short term, and like in the case of the manufacturer that was selling to Walmart, that was instrumental in not only probably keeping the lights on, but instrumental in his business growth. So the little bit of interest that he had to pay is a blip on the radar.
12% annual interest rate. You need it for 3 months. What's that? 4% loan.
It's nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that slingshots him into a position to where now he's better off financially. And then that's where you were talking about, you help the company get healthier and transition to traditional lending.
Yeah.
So as a funding expert, I mean, you get to see a lot of business financials, I'm sure. So what are some of the common mistakes, other than what we've talked about, that you see business owners making?
They don't account, like, what's the lifeblood of every business? Working capital. And they don't account for the working capital. They account equipment and operations, all that. But really, it's the soft costs of the business. They always take into account the hard costs, but there's a lot of soft costs that, the insurances, the labor cost. Labor is always number one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, labor's the most expensive. So how do you, we go in, so if you're $1 million company and you need bridge lending, I'll send in a virtual CFO or a virtual CEO to streamline your systems, operations, procedures, which you haven't done. Most entrepreneurs are the best salesperson in the company, and they built the company, but now when they go to funding, they didn't build the foundation. So that's why the bank won't fund you, because you don't have the different systems, operation, metrics, key performance indicators that you need. And without that, you're not going to get the lowest price funding. If you do all that and you have all those operation systems and key metrics, well, you're good. You're a well-run company.
So from day one, start out with knowing all your numbers,
right? Systems, operation procedures, a debt. A lot of people also, one of the biggest things, we go through their pricing model. And it's like, how did you do your pricing? Well, it was wholesale cost times 3. No wonder you're not making any money. You're only taking wholesale costs and multiplying 3. That's how you came with your pricing model. You didn't account for all the other hidden, below the line expenses that are in a business.
Right. So they didn't spend enough time pricing out their product or service.
Right.
And so they're
over leveraged. They have too much debt, or sometimes I do financial restructuring with this, or we do debt consolidation. We'll do that. So
a lot of mistakes, not having good organization, processes, skills in basically running the business. Yes. Okay.
They're always good salespeople, and they could sell, and they think they can sell their way out of it. Well, there's a lot of other issues.
That's good. That's good. So how do you, this has been wonderful that you've given a lot of value, advice, and tips to entrepreneurs out there, not only from the standpoint of how they should set up their company, the systems, the key performance indicators, how to network, how to market that way. But I want to give listeners a way to contact you, because you're a huge resource from a standpoint of just, you're a super connector. That's a great resource when you're looking for not only money, but introductions to people. And obviously when they get to the point where they need funding, how do you suggest listeners reach you? What's the best way?
The best way is you either call me directly. My phone number, if you don't mind, is 512-261-0024. I like to call you. I like to talk to you. I always say, my voicemail always says, how can I help you? Can we brainstorm a solution for you? Within 15 minutes, I can tell you a yes or a no. I give you a quick decision, because I've been doing this long enough so that you don't go through the pain of lingering, wondering if you can get funded. So I say yes or no. The other thing you might want to look up my website. I have a lot of different of my programs. You'll see my 15 different funding, alternative business, working capital funding programs on my website, which is ArTexFunding.com, ArTexFunding.com. And my email is Artie, ARTIE, at ArTexFunding.com. So in all those ways, you can text me, call me. As I like to say, I start at 8 a.m. and I don't go to sleep till 12:30 a.m. So I take calls at midnight. Call me midnight. I'll pick up the phone probably.
So that number is your direct line?
Yes, it's my direct line.
Awesome. Love that. I'll put that in the show notes. So that's a great resource for any of the listeners looking for advice, tips, funding. So I'll put that in the show notes.
My passion is to help companies, growing company more problem. I just love what I do. The stories, the entrepreneurial stories that you hear every day of people that have run and owned businesses is just fascinating.
You definitely do have the passion for helping people. You're a people person, and I appreciate everything that you've provided for our audience here today. Before we go, I wanted to go into the rapid fire. I'm always excited to get to the rapid fire, because I get to know you a little better and the listeners get to do the same. So the first question is, what do you do to keep your edge?
Well, I work out. I like to lift weights and run and, keep in top physical position. And I also do full contact martial arts. I still do that. I've been doing that for 20 years. And that's just the science of self-defense, we call it. It's really, I started in Kaju Kenbo, which is karate, judo, jiu-jitsu, and kenpo. And unfortunately, my sensei passed away last year, but we still meet up with a couple of black belts, and we just do street level, practical, can you use it, self-defense. And I just love that. And it just keeps me balanced, the yin and yang of life, I would say.
So to keep in a tip-top physical condition, but also I would imagine from a psychology mindset standpoint, you're really able to release a lot of stress and let go of what's going on in your world and just focus on martial arts and not getting kicked in the mouth.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm a middle child, so I do everything in my life in moderation. I try to keep all my system fired at 100%, 100% of the time in full moderation. I have a lovely wife of 30 years, and I like to keep that great relationship. And everything I do, I just try to excel and keep everything balanced and keep everyone and everything going.
That's great advice. So far, who's had the most impact on your life?
So my dad was a very interesting guy. He would always tell me, you have no problems in life. If you have problems in life, it means you're not working hard enough. He says to me, every problem can be solved by working through it. So that was one thing he would always tell me. The other thing he would always tell me is there's plenty of PhDs driving taxi in New York City. Oh, yes, they're highly educated. They're super smart, but they didn't have the four most important ingredients of life. And I would say, so Dad, okay, so what's that? What's the four most ingredients of life? You go perseverance, persistence, motivation, and ambition. I say, what? He goes, well, here it is again. Perseverance, persistence, motivation, and ambition. You have those four things, you'll do well in life. And that's what I've lived on and ran my life throughout.
And it obviously did well for you.
Right. And he was another gentleman, started nothing, started his own insurance brokerage and company, and he became very successful himself.
That's great. That's great advice. Yeah, just knowing something doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be good at doing it, because knowing and doing are two different things.
Right.
So that's all really good advice. If you could recommend one book or resource, what would it be?
Oh, best one, I would change my sales life, because number one, to be an entrepreneur, you have to learn to sell, because nothing happens until you sell something. When I was in corporate America, that was my mantra, nothing happens until we sell something. And I used to say, we're paying everyone in the corporation salaries. So I would read Art Sobczak's book, and he taught you how to question and talk to people and get them to talk. Let them tell you what they need and how that you can help them and what their problems are and how you can solve their problems. It all starts from being a people person and being empathetic and listening to people and trying to help them.
That's awesome. Yes, very true that it's not about, what's the saying, telling is not selling.
Right, exactly.
It's about the power of the questions and showing empathy for the other person and trying to become a problem solver, because in life, we all have problems. If you don't have problems, you're probably 6 foot below.
Right.
So what do you do in your free time outside of martial arts?
Eat, drink, and party.
That's that balance, right? Work hard, play hard.
Right. Yeah. I like this weekend. I'm very social. It seems like I get invited to a lot of different events. People say I'm a big personality, so I get invited, and I drag my wife along. And I like to get out and meet people and socialize.
So martial arts and go out and peruse the town.
Exactly.
I like it. Except for you won't find me doing martial arts with you. I've seen your battle scars, if you will, and going to work with a black eye just isn't going to do it. So what does financial freedom mean to you? On the show, we're all about business, money, and freedom. As a wealth manager myself, that's my number one motive, to get everyone that I help, I guide in life to a point of financial freedom or financial independence. That means something different to everyone. So what does it mean to you?
Yeah, I am lucky. At this point, I am financially free. Well, what does it mean? Because I'm debt free. Because first of all, I paid off all my debts. And I'm a cash guy. I have credit cards, but I don't even carry credit cards. I carry debit cards. And I always pay my bills first. I've learned a long time ago, when you get paid, you pay your bills first, then you pay yourself. That means you put money in savings. Remember, wealth is what you spent, it's what you have. And again, that's a balance. When I was making lots of money in corporate America, I would save half and spend half. Now I'm making lots of money owning my own business. I save half and spend half. And that way it gives me balance, and I have money if I ever want to retire. I don't know if I'll ever retire, but if I ever want to retire. So I'm lucky at this point. I'm a guy that has absolutely zero debt. And that's very cathartic for me.
So that's those systems you put in place of paying yourself first, paying off the debts, has put you in a position where, although that you love your work and you're passionate about helping people, if you wanted to hang it up tomorrow,
I could. Yeah,
you could. And I think that's what financial independence is. I think that's a very good ideal definition of it. It's not stop working. It's not retirement. I don't think that we were made to retire, right? It's a work optional lifestyle.
I realized I was financially independent. One day I took a Monday off. And I said to my wife, hey, we're going to go to the movies today and this, that. She said, but it's Monday. I said, yeah, I know. I said, but I'm taking today off. She goes, why is that? I said, because I can.
I love that.
And
I can't imagine you taking the day off.
I did. And that's when I really felt, when it dawned on me that I felt I was financially independent.
Boy, that gives you a lot of peace of mind.
Yeah.
Awesome. So how does Artie Berne want to be remembered?
Oh, as a happy, fun, diligent, dependable person. I always like to say, I want to be the most dependable person you do business with. And I strive to do that. I tell you, I'm going to call you 3 minutes after 3 on January 22nd. Your phone will ring 3 minutes after 3 on January 22nd. And when I was in sales, and I was a sales manager, and I was in charge of big corporate, and I tried to instill that in everyone. You have to be, business is about honorable, honest, and diligent and dependable. And that's what I strive for every day, actually.
And it's evident, you don't just say it, it's evident in your action. So I can attest to that.
Thank you.
That's great. So I'm all about tips and tricks to shorten the time to find true success for our listeners. What parting advice would you like to share with our listeners? It could be anything.
So, my big thing is, you want to build a business, get out, stay out, and be out. Go out and meet the people. Go out and see people, let them know you, let them know who you are, do something for them, give. What is that? Well, you give first. What's that called now? Pay it forward.
Yes.
Pay it forward. Do favors, do volunteer work, do things for your church or your synagogue or your society or the environment. Help people. We're lucky, we're blessed, we've worked hard, we've made the right decisions. Go out and help other people that aren't as fortunate as you are. And that's what I try to do.
That's huge. That growth and contribution,
right?
The two highest human needs. And the giving part is a lot of times very hard. But if you think about the parable of sowing and reaping, to sow something, don't you have to let go of it and give it to the ground to let the ground do its magic?
Probably.
Yeah.
I'll be there in the ground soon enough.
No, you're a young man. Thank you for that advice. But before we go, I want to remind our listeners that, we welcome questions, whether it's about business, whether it's about money. We want to answer your questions, and we also welcome feedback. So visit the website, profitstowealth.com/contact. Jason, myself, we'd be happy to answer the questions. Maybe it's a question for Artie, and we would love to pass that on to him and answer the question for you on the show. So Artie, thank you for the value and the contribution today. It's been fun and extremely useful. So
I appreciate the time and thinking of me and helping me and all the support you've given me. And you're great. And I really appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you again, Artie. Take care.
That's all for this episode of Profits to Wealth. But we have more resources available to you on our website. Head over to profitstowealth.com and take our questionnaire to find out how we can provide you with a tailored approach to your entrepreneurial journey. It's available exclusively on profitstowealth.com. Until next time, we look forward to talking business, money, and freedom.